The Russian Chimp Experiment. In the early days of the Soviet Union, Russian scientist Ilya Ivanov conducted experiments to create human-chimpanzee hybrids as a form of super soldier for the inevitable next war in Europe. Whilst his experiments are said to have failed, he nonetheless made significant breakthroughs in hybrid research. And it is rumored that some Russian cryptids may in fact be the half-successes that escaped Ilya's lab in 1936. Come the era of the Cold War, the focus switched over to steroids, with the Soviet scientists making super athletes and super soldiers through a range of compounds derived from testosterone. Human-ape super soldiers were forgotten about for decades. In the 1980s, however, things changed. As the Cold War began to heat back up under Reagan, a top Soviet scientist, Dmitry Pushkin, rediscovered Ivanov's work on human-ape hybrids and began trying to churn out enough super soldiers for the inevitable confrontation between America and Russia. When the wall fell in November 1989 and the Soviet Union itself ended barely 2 years later, Pushkin found himself out of work. And it is rumored he dropped his hybrid experiments at a local Orthodox church, who later adopted them out to a gym owner in a forgotten suburb of Moscow. The experiments, and all notions of hybrid super soldiers, were done. Then something weird began happening. A bunch of Russians with absurd, inhuman proportions began turning up in pro fighting. A man who was 6 feet tall with an 80-inch reach, who was capable of wrapping opponents up in chokes that shouldn't mechanically work. Unless, that is, you had the arms of a chimp. The first of these hybrids was a natural middleweight, but so strong he was able to submit heavyweights, despite displaying little fighting skill beyond his phenomenal ape-like strength. He was soon followed by Russians who had clearly trained in fighting and had some skill, yet could still exploit their ape-like proportions and strength to catch men in impossible chokes. Which brings us to today. Sergei Pavlovich has a 213 centimeters reach, that is 84 inches. What human has arms that long relative to their body? What human possesses such insane, ape-like strength that whoever he touches goes to sleep instantly? Only a hybrid super soldier. And it gets worse. Because whilst you were all focused on the ape-human hybrids fighting under the Russian flag, a man with a Slavic name was taking over the UFC featherweight division under a different flag, who just so happens to be 5'6", with a 71-inch reach. And he just happens to be strong enough to outgrapple a Dagestani wrestler. That's right. Alexander Volkanovski is the final and most powerful human-ape hybrid to date. He is the apotheosis of Ivanov's theories, a symbol of Russian athletic supremacy. And he's creating more of his kind.